Yes guys, what is going on and welcome back to another video. Behind me is the Nissan Juke. It's quite a controversial car for those of you that know. Let's find out why. So now spec wise, this is the end connector spec, meaning it sits right in the middle of Nissan's trim levels. The colour is ceramic grey and you get a few pearl black bits on the side, on the mirrors, and you can see the grille over here as well to break up the colour. But yeah, looks wise, first impressions, decent. Now if we look head on at the Juke, I can kind of see where people don't really understand it, and I think it's the headlights. The LEDs look absolutely banging over here, but it's definitely more a case of these. Do they have to be there? I don't know, it just, yeah, it's them dots. It's just those dots, man. Get rid of them dots and we'll be onto something. Looking at it from the side, you can see it's a half decent machine. It looks a lot bigger from the front than it definitely does on the side. We've also got a little logo down there telling us it's a hybrid, but more importantly, with this being the connector spec, we're on 17-inch alloys. Moving around to the rear, you can see the LEDs continue, and the rear is definitely nicer than the front, in my opinion. You've also got quite a little spoiler just over here, which makes it look quite sporty at certain angles. I want to say this is the angle. Yeah, definitely a bit sportier than the previous model. So now looking into the interior, just on the side here, we've got automatic windows, especially for this one, meaning press it down once it goes down, press it up once it goes up. The other side doesn't have that, unfortunately. You're going to have to press and hold all the way, but it's not too much of an issue. The cluster is half digital and half analog, and I love analog dials. Steering wheel, nice leather steering wheel with a flat bottom, easy now, quite racy Nissan. You've also got multifunctional buttons on the steering wheel, which in my opinion work really well. There are some manufacturers that use all this new technology and touch sensitive. This is what you want, nice leather steering wheel, flat bottom, happy days. Looking at things from the passenger side, with this being the end connector spec again, we don't have electric seats, but obviously you've got seats that slide forward and back, and you can adjust the backrest. Just looking at things from this side, this car also has an e-pedal, which is great, meaning that you can drive with just one foot. It probably won't bring you to a dead stop, but it definitely helps when it comes to lazy driving. You can see down here we also have a drive mode. We've got an automatic transmission. We've got a nice 7-inch touchscreen, which in my opinion probably could do with being a tad bigger. Easy now, but yeah, we've got vents here. We've got an EV button which allows us to switch into full EV when we just want to use the battery, and we have climate control. It's not dual zone, it means you just control the temperature just off this button, as opposed to the passenger and the driver having independent heating. We've also got the world's smallest armrest. This armrest doesn't adjust forward and back. There is a tiny bit of space inside it, but it doesn't adjust forward and back, meaning if you are in a good driving position, or in my driving position anyway, my elbows don't even reach it. So yeah, either drive like a gangster or just don't use it at all. Oh, blimey, getting on. So as you can see, my knees are touching. I stand at 5'11", and this seat would be, I don't know, in a position that somebody at 5'11" would sit. It is a tiny bit cramped here. Maybe I probably could be a bit more generous and push this seat forward, but there's not much between this seat, and the knee space isn't the greatest. I probably wouldn't want to sit in here for too long. Headroom, definitely enough, but leg space, get me out of here. So now moving further to the back, boot space. This is where it probably shines, and this might be the reason why there's not so much room in the back, because this boot, at first impressions, without doing litres and all of that, it's big. It definitely is big, and if you look at the Juke, the size of it, that's probably where they've made most of their space savings in the interior for the rear. So if you are more of, I don't know, 2 or 3 people driver, then the boot is okay. But if you are going to load this car up with 5 people or 4 people, 2 adults, 2 children, it's going to work. But 4 adults, probably a bit too cramped. But boot space, as we said, is definitely big enough, and you can see we've got 2 layers here. You've got where it is now, which is the lowest position, and just over here you can see that's where it came at. When I got the car, it was on that level, but once we dropped it to the lower level, it looked a lot more spacious. Space and looks aside, I would say that the Juke has come quite a long way. Sure, this could be bigger and the armrest could be in a better position, but other than that, build quality and everything else so far at first glance seems okay. Now driving around in the Juke, we've got 3 modes. We've got standard, we've got eco, and we've got sport. Now I know 143 brake horsepower in what is classed as maybe a little crossover isn't going to be very sporty, but when you do flick it down into sport, or flick it up rather, the steering gets a bit heavier, and the engine, I don't know, just gets a little bit of freedom. the dial immediately swings all the way down on the power band and you get a little boost. Remember, it's 143 brake horsepower, so it's not much, but you could be in a situation like I am now where you got somebody up your jacksie and you're like, mate, just because it's a Juke, don't get it twisted, we can push on. And you just crack it on, wait for it, and there's something there, a little bit of a push, nothing major, but enough for your day-to-day journeys where you might need to do an overtake. It is a bit delayed, but it's okay. Not the greatest, but okay. Flicking it back down into eco now, steering goes back to normal, nice and light, coasting. The engine switches off, EV mode is activated, and the throttle response is a bit more subdued, so you need to push it more to get going. Now when you flick the drive mode down from eco into standard, the steering wheel gets a bit lighter, which makes me think that when it's in eco, not only does it reduce the throttle response, but I think it also reduces the amount of, I don't know, power steering support you're getting, because the steering just feels so light and very realistic. And if you know me, you know I'm not a fan of this fake steering weight. I just prefer something that's very direct and kind of matches your inputs. So I don't want to turn the wheel this much and have the car drifting. So yeah, standard is, the weight in standard is spot on, but eco is probably where you want to leave it to get the most MPG. Now ride quality and suspension, it's not crashy. We're going just in a little bump here. It's not, I don't know, clunky. It's okay, and that's rich, because this car is so controversial. So many people have disliked it in the past. I think it's come a long way since. Looks wise, we've touched on that already, it looks okay, but the ride quality from the driving perspective anyway is spot on. Look at that, we're just going on little bumps in the road, no potholes obviously, but it's not crashy at all, which is good. I do think also it is down to the spec. This is the N connector, meaning it's on the 17-inch alloys, which are going to have a bigger sidewall, which makes it more comfortable than say the 19-inch. And if you are going to get a crossover, I don't think you'd want to be going 19s, because maybe looks wise, of course, they're going to fill up, you're going to have less of a sidewall, so the wheels are going to look better, but comfort, it's got to be this 17s for the win, win. So now with this being a hybrid, and if you know most hybrids, the switch from hybrid battery mode to combustion engine tends to be quite noisy. We're cruising around here at the speed limit and we're just switching between EV and combustion engine with no noise. If I was to put my foot down, because as you can see we're going from, I don't know, 30 mile an hour to a national speed limit, listen to how noisy the engine is. Hopefully you guys can't hear it, but engine's on. This is a 60 mile an hour road, we're currently doing 50, and other than wind noise, there's no intrusion of your, I don't know, your sound quality. There are some hybrids that I've driven, when you go from EV mode, as we are now cruising along, 30 mile an hour, and as soon as you give it a little push, oh, it sounds like Thomas the Tank Engine is pulling up. So it definitely gets a thumbs up from the way it can switch from EV to combustion engine. So now seating position, something that is very key when driving a car. It's good, it's very good. So I stand at 5'11", and one of the biggest things for me is getting a good seating position, so making sure my knees are not touching the wheel or any of the stalks, and also making sure that when it comes to, I don't know, parking, I'm not having to like literally look over the top of the car and strain my neck just to make sure I'm not going to hit the car in front. The seating position is absolutely bang on. There's no electric seats, unfortunately, in this spec. However, with that, it also gives you a lower seating position, because if this did have electric seats, you'd have more motors underneath, meaning if you were taller than me, you'd probably have trouble getting in and out of the car, or just having, I don't know, enough headspace, if that makes any sense. But either way, even if you were taller, the visual range of this car is absolutely bang on, which allows you to have a great seating position and good visibility when you're driving. Now, as mentioned, this car doesn't unfortunately have heated seats, which I don't know, I do use, don't get me wrong, but I can live without. My first ever car I got didn't have heated seats, and had I not experienced it, probably wouldn't mind. Sure, in winter it does help, but I don't know about you guys, but when I do turn on heated seats, after about 2 minutes I turn it off because the bouteille is cooking, you know what I mean? It's more like fried chicken in the car. So there is no heated seats. That is a creature comfort that most people would miss, but again, if that is something you don't, you probably go on the spec above. Interior wise, it's got, I don't know, wired CarPlay, which is a great quirk. The biggest thing for me is this cluster, and I know it's not fully digital, but something about an analog dash that you just can't beat. It just works. There isn't anything that could possibly go wrong. You do have all of your things in the middle that tell you your trip, your audio, and your steering is multifunctional, meaning you don't really have to take your hands off the wheel when you are driving. The only probably time you take your hands off the wheel is just to wave at people when they keep, I don't know, giving you bad hand signals about the car, and just say, it's fine, you ain't driving it, I am. So now, where can this car be improved? If I look at the interior, from what I can see here, it's more than enough for your family crossover. Space is definitely big enough. It would probably be my first port of call exterior. That little, I don't know, mystic meg ball that they've put on the bumper to house the lights, I don't know how needed that is. I personally feel that if that was removed, the front end would be a winner. I think it's just those, I don't know, eyes that give it such a bad name. Positives for me have to be the way it switches from hybrid to combustion engine, and I say that a lot because that is probably one of the most noticeable things when you get in. I don't know, I get in quite a few Ubers time to time, and you notice that as soon as the driver hits the motorway and pushes on, it sounds horrible. It sounds like he's doing 100 miles an hour, but he's probably just doing 60 or 63 because he's probably trying to slow down the journey to make more money off you. But this is probably one of the quietest hybrids I've ever driven, and I actually own a hybrid as my day-to-day car. So now, efficiency-wise, we've been driving for just over 30 minutes. We've covered 10.9 miles, and if I switch through this display, since start, we've done 45.7, which is somewhat off the 55 mpg that Nissan claim. I don't think that's too bad. Again, with this being the size it is and the weight it is, and obviously we have been pushing on a bit, it's fair to say that 45 plus on a daily commute, 30 minutes, 10 miles, is definitely achievable. So guys, that is the Nissan Juke. It's probably always going to be a controversial car. For what reason? I'm not sure, but me personally, in this position, I don't see any issues with this car. Efficient, spacious, again, could do with a pan roof. It gets a thumbs up for me. Would I have one? Again, I own a hybrid. Yes. However, I'm not sure if I'd go for this exact spec. 17-inch wheels, 100% cheaper on the tyres when it comes to replacement, and more comfortable. But there's probably a few things I change around with the spec. But guys, other than that, if you have enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please smash the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. God bless.